Well, Bear, we sat here last week and we said don't bury the Badgers quite yet on the basketball court, and
no.
You know what? Look what happens over the last week.
2 big wins, 2 impressive wins too, for that matter. On the road in the Carrier Dome and at home against a Temple, I think, team that's not going to be bad by the end of the year, and really kind of dominated that. So Marquette on Saturday, and I think that's a big one. Obviously, state bragging rights are on the line, and UWM on Wednesday, and I don't expect them to have much trouble with them. But I think Marquette and Wisconsin will probably give you, at least early season-wise, who's maybe in a little better shape.
It's always one of the games, even maybe more so than some of the Big Ten games, I really just like them to beat Marquette.
Exactly.
Because it's, I don't know why.
Because we went to school there, and we didn't go to school at Marquette.
Madison over Milwaukee, that whole shebang.
Yes.
We'll talk a little Badgers. They're going to a bowl game as well. There's a big football game Saturday in Ohio. And the stove's heating up down at the GM
hot stove
meetings.
Lucroy leaving or not?
Plenty of stuff going on. We'll talk about it all coming up on this week's episode of Extra Points.
Hot stove. Boy, it's hot.
Woo.
Man.
Winter meetings
have begun. They're ongoing.
This is Eric Schmolt on the Sports Editor Gazette and John Barry here. We get together usually once a week to just kind of banter around about many of the sports around the state and area. And you don't really think baseball this time of year, but this is a year where the stove really is kind of hot. There's been quite a few trades and signings already, and
one non-trade that because Chapman, I guess, got into a little domestic problem and punched his hand through a window or something. And
we've seen a lot of pitching contracts that have
the Dodgers
just been enough to make somebody blush, I would say.
I'm curious to see what the Brewers do because they've talked about Lucroy. I know the Rangers had some interest, Atlanta had some interest, and Stern said, I'm not going to give him up just for the sake of giving him up to get a little younger. But I think Adam Lynn's gone. I think he's going to be gone. It sounds like the Orioles are certainly in the mix, possibly Seattle. But I would expect Adam Lynn to be gone, and maybe that allows them to move Braun to first base. I don't know.
They've also had some Segura talk as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess Lucroy's the one that people are most I've seen lots of different takes on it. People who would be furious if he was gone, or people who just say, well, it's a smart decision. I mean, he has grown to become one of the guys that's most likable on this Brewers team. He's a veteran presence that people like a lot, and he's an affable guy that comes across as being just a good guy in the community. So I guess where do you stand on it in terms of, would you be mad if he was gone?
Well, and what Lucroy do we get back? Do we get the guy last year that had the broken toe and the concussion and really did not have a good year, or do we get the guy that was, in the top 3 of the MVP vote 2 years ago? And hopefully, if he comes back, we get the Lucroy from 2 years ago and not the one that struggled with injuries last year. But, if he does go and you don't get a catcher in return, are you happy with Maldonado as your everyday catcher? I'm not. I mean, he's okay defensively, but, he couldn't hardly hit his weight last year. And, I think they're going to hang on to him, but like I say, I think Lind will be gone, and maybe they'll package something else and try to get a quality starter. But there's so many teams looking for starting pitching that I'm not sure the Brewers farm system can hang with some of those other ones that have a lot of prospects they can give up.
Well, I wouldn't like, in the state that they're in where it's rebuilding time anyway, It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to really shell out any prospects at this point.
No. And like I say, as long as people keep going to Miller Park and the turnstiles are turning, then I think they're content with trying to build to the future and maybe pattern themselves after the Cubs a little bit. But for a fan, I don't want to wait 3-4 years to see progress. But that may be where we're at right now.
Well, I guess you could look at it this way. I mean, if you tell me it's going to be 3 or 4 years, I think I'm okay with that. But it's as long as we don't get back to the stages where the Brewers were trying to rebuild for like 15 years.
Right, exactly.
And I mean, if you tell me it's 3 or 4, then okay, I can withstand a little bit, kind of like the Cubs had to go through for a couple of years there, but they had a plan in mind.
Right.
And it seems to be working out for them quite well
now.
And
let's give the young GM, give him some time and see what he can do.
Yeah. Would be interesting to be down at some of those meetings just to hear, especially with the numbers that are being thrown around.
Especially somebody represented by Scott Boras, because that guy, there's some serious coin being talked about when he's involved, because his clients make a boatload of money and probably are overpaid. And, some of those guys that they're looking to sign or looking to move they got some hefty contracts that go with them, or they're going to be up for bigger contracts, after maybe next year.
We'll see if the Brewers pull anything off here over the next couple days. Coming up Saturday is the big one, and it doesn't really make any sense because it's always Mount Union and UW Whitewater playing late in the NCAA Division III football playoffs, but it's usually 1 week later than this.
Yep. The Purple Raiders are favored by 11.5.
They have lines for this.
I'll take Whitewater on the points gladly.
This is you found a line for
found
this.
a line on
is
it. Well,
a legit thing, or did somebody just
no,
make
it's
this
legit.
up?
Tim Seaman, our coworker, found it for us, and I said, Tim, I wonder if there's a line on the Whitewater game Saturday. Not that I'm telling people to bet, but Whitewater's beaten them 5 of the last 6 years, and even when Whitewater lost to Mount Union at the Stag Bowl, the games were pretty close. And I know it's a lot going on the road at Mount Union, but right now the Warhawks seem to have their number.
Well, and they don't seem to me to be a team that's going to get beat by double digits by anybody right now.
Their defense is good, and I think the offense continues to get better. And Nelson, has turned into a pretty consistent quality quarterback, and Delvin's Marcus Hudson is the real deal.
Well, it's perfect because they have the guy who can pound the rock, which is their thing, Jordan Ratliff.
Yep.
Somehow he takes all the carries, it seems like. They have found a way to get a couple of guys involved, but he handles the brunt of the work, but he seems to be getting even better as the season goes on. It doesn't really make any sense, but it works. And with the Nelson-Hudson connection, that gives him a nice balance.
And Janesville's own Paul Foster, again, somebody needs to explain to me how he's not all WIAC. I've yet to get an answer on that. He had another interception last week in the big win over Oshkosh, leads them in tackles, and really is all over the field. I mean, he's had a phenomenal season, and great to see the local kids with Hudson and Foster. Great to see them do well and give Whitewater a chance to make it 3 straight.
I mean, and I think we have to give some credit to Kevin Bolus as well.
Exactly.
I mean, when you talk about taking over a job where you're supposed to win a national championship like every year, that's not something that sounds very fun to me. Obviously, he's a guy who's been around the program, so he wasn't scared of getting in that situation, but that's not exactly the most intriguing as you're going to take a new job and they say, hey, by the way, we expect you to get to the national championship.
Yeah, and
and all they've done is stay the course, and he's
one
kept
loss,
all the principles.
Which he even said that might have been the best thing for us, was for that loss to kind of relieve a little bit of pressure from that long winning streak. And you never want to lose, but I think the Warhawks gained a lot with that loss to Oshkosh earlier in the season. And boy, they're playing good football right now. They beat a very, very good Oshkosh team last Saturday on the road. That was not an easy win by any means.
2 straight road wins. I mean, they're getting it done away from home. I think just really impressed by the fact, I think we thought, they were going to be good and they were going to make the playoffs, but were they going to really be this good again, where they make this deep run? And here they are, 1 win away from going back to the
And for those of you at home on Saturday wanting a chance to watch the game, ESPN3, which is a online site.
Right. You have to have a cable provider that works for that, so you'll need a password.
Right, but it is on, for those of you that are interested, 11 a.m. on Saturday morning in beautiful Alliance, Ohio.
Probably means you can watch it on Watch ESPN on your phone as well. That app, if you're so inclined to download apps and things like that.
Why not? Watch the Warhawks? Heck yeah.
They were on TV this weekend.
I watched it. Channel 14.
Yeah. What do you think? You think they get it done? You just think they're not going to get beat by double digits?
I'm going to go with Mount Union. I'll say 28-24, Purple Raiders, boo, hiss. Which means Whitewater should win because I'm never right.
Right.
So
I'll take the Warhawks then.
Okay, that'll way.
Way to go. We'll go 1-1 there, and
all right, good.
Come back here and decide what the loser has to do next week.
All right.
Also, speaking of bowls, the Badgers were announced they're going to play in the Holiday Bowl. I think we thought it was going to be Utah, but it turns out USC. Yep. I think that's a little more intriguing.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a better draw. Certainly a lot more prominent program. They had a little hiccup last Saturday in losing convincingly to Stanford, but Stanford's playing pretty well. Stanford probably, one of those 3 teams that, could have possibly snuck into the top 4. But, December 30th, San Diego, one of the worst places to be over the Christmas holiday than San Diego. And 9:30 start, which Not really great for us press people, but
I don't know how that's going to work.
Not sure how we're going to work that with a 9:30 start on ESPN, which means that game will get over about 3 in the morning. So papers may be late on December 31st. Just be aware of that.
Yeah, well, we could talk more about the matchup, I guess, as it gets closer.
Yep.
But I guess worse things could have happened with a 9-3 team. You get to go to San Diego and you get to play against a team. I mean, you go play against the Utah. I know they're in the Pac-12, but I don't think it rings quite as big to people as if you were to go and win in California against a USC team.
I agree. Yep.
I
think my biggest question headed in, does Corey Clement make the trip and play? And I guess time will tell. I mean, I think there's obviously a lot more going on than the injury. I think with the arrest and everything else, we'll see if he indeed has played his last down for the Badgers.
It's been a weird year for him.
It's been a weird year.
Never got on track. Nope. And I mean, the very first game was the one where he really got injured.
Yep. It's too bad because he does have talent, but he may have worn out his welcome.
What else are we missing here?
Well, the Packers. I mean, the
Motown Miracle.
The Motown Miracle and whatever you want to call it. And, I know for you, very heart-wrenching loss because you're a Lions fan. And for me, a neutral guy. I was over it
fairly quickly, to be
honest. I don't care,
you.
But I don't understand the Lions, what they're doing at the end. Why Kelvin Johnson's not standing on the goal line saying, here, try to get a pass by me or Eric Ebron or, any other tight ends. And, if you think, well, I thought Green Bay was going to try to lateral again. Well, they're on the 50-yard line. Rodgers can throw a ball 50, 60 yards. We saw that with ease. And, you still had the majority of your cornerbacks, 5'9" of them, all 5'9" of them that were standing in the end zone.
In the back of the end zone.
In the back of the end zone who weren't even making a play on Rodgers where, like I say, if Kelvin Johnson's in the game, he could just stand at the goal line and say, try to get a pass by me. And I think I would have taken my chances with Kelvin Johnson.
Also, if they lateral, he can just run up the field and tackle someone.
Exactly. I mean, what a...
People are like, well, what about the phantom face mask call? But it's like, to me, if you just bat that ball down, then what's the difference? You don't.
And some people say, will that turn the Packers' season around? No, I don't think it turns their season around because the Vikings were exposed once again on Sunday in a bad loss at home to Seattle. So clearly Green Bay... that division is theirs to lose. The Vikings play at Arizona Thursday night, which probably another loss. The Packers come home and play a Cowboy team that's, riddled with injuries, and you would think they would get well at home at Lambeau against the Cowboys. And then you're a game up with 3 to play, and the last game of the year is at home against Minnesota, who you handled pretty well the first time. So I think more than anything, it just put Green Bay back in the driver's seat. But I think even with a Green Bay loss last Thursday, I still think they'd have been all right.
I mean, they were going to always make the playoffs. It's just kind of a matter of how they're playing once that rolls around and what path they have to go to get to wherever they're going to go.
Right.
Because, like we kind of said before, if you're going to Carolina or you're going to Arizona, I mean, it's not. Those teams have been very good,
right?
But it doesn't have that feeling of like when you had to go to Seattle,
or San Francisco back in the day. But I mean, and let's face it, what's Cam Newton and Carson Palmer done in the playoffs? Not a whole lot. I think the one team probably that scares people right now is Seattle because they're playing well and Russell Wilson just continues to just get better and better. And, that's a team nobody's going to want to play come playoff time.
They might be a favorite in the NFC right now.
I would agree.
Even though it's
like I say, Carolina, Cam Newton's your MVP right now. I don't think there's any question, and he deserves it. He's had a great year. But, again, there's a guy kind of like Andy Dalton who's not done much in the playoffs.
See how it all pans out.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks here. Yeah. Fantasy playoffs have arrived.
They have arrived. I'd like to thank Janikowski from the Raiders for knocking me out of the playoffs by missing an extra point and a field goal. Thank you.
Seabass.
Thank you.
It's all on Seabass.
Polish hammer.
You can follow along throughout the weekend as we keep tabs on the Warhawks. And obviously high school basketball is well underway here and
full swing.
Maybe we talk that next week, just a little bit more of what we've seen. We'll be about a month into it now and have a little bit better of a grasp of where teams are landing here and as they get ready for their holiday break a little bit or holiday tournaments and whatnot.
A lot of things coming up. Yep.
Let us know what you think of the show by leaving us a review here at GazetteExtra.com or YouTube or iTunes. If it's good enough or Probably anything at all.
It's
Since
negative,
nobody
weird,
likes to
yeah.
email us.
Something,
We'll probably read it here
Yeah,
anyway.
what the heck?
Find us on Twitter or email us at sports@gazetteextra.com. Thanks to Kevin McLeod for the music and Andrew Ryder for making this show possible.
Spot on.
And we'll see you next week.
Take care, everybody.